Yeah, buddy. Proudly brought to you in low quality and low definition. This is Bad Guy Labs. I'm Jason Emerson, here with my partner, Cole Koenig.
Yo.
We're here to accept the job of being the bad guys, so you don't have to. But if you want to, you can join us as honorary bad guys. We'll let you into our club.
It feels good.
This is a lab where we do thought experiments, and as I put it, free thought experiments. Also explosions sometimes.
Sometimes.
So make sure you email us at BadGuyLabsChannel@gmail.com. Facebook, find our page, Bad Guy Labs. Tweet, or whatever it is, twat. Tweeter, use the tweeter.
That's for the tweeting your picture.
Yes, it's called
Twatter.
twatting. Twat regularly.
You can follow us on Twitter.
That's when you accidentally tweet naked pictures of yourself.
Twatting.
Twatting.
All right, I'm gonna write that down in our new sexual euphemism handbook.
Alrighty. I've heard the phrase twat being thrown around before as a Twitter joke, but to actually have it mean something, I think is pretty cool.
I like it.
So anyway, we're at Bad Guy Labs on Twitter, and our YouTube channel, of course, is BadGuyLabsChannel. And make sure you like us and subscribe to us and follow us and twat to us. And
not too much twatting though.
Yeah,
we're not sure how much we can handle at this point.
Especially if you're one of those more handsome women. Who I'm thinking of there used to be these commercials for Budweiser years ago for Ladies Night, and it was like these bearded dudes, like it looked like a bunch of ladies at a bar from behind, and then somebody'd come up to them and they turn around, and it was this big bearded dude, like and he's like tee hee hee, tee hee hee. So don't twat.
Really, just cancel your Twitter account in that case.
Yeah. And make sure you tell your friends about us. We want to get likes and followings and whatever you call it. And
if you don't like the show, tell your enemies.
Sure, yeah, that's a good idea. And don't forget to not confuse us with those other Bad Guy Labs people.
Yeah, fuck them.
Those other guys out there, unless they're cool, in which case, I guess, unfuck them. If there's anything you can do.
Sounds more like a spell than a procedure.
But as I say regularly, much like there are many different Acme TNT corporations out there that Wile E. Coyote may use or not, there are more than one Bad Guy Labs. So keep that in mind. Don't just assume that you have stumbled upon us because you've stumbled upon something called Bad Guy Labs. That's all.
For sure.
And if you think of anything else you can do to us, I guess...
Do it.
Whatever, I guess. I don't know.
Don't send us anthrax in the mail, but...
Yeah, or, not a lot of it anyway. Bounds of reason, people.
Yeah, we don't keep any cattle, so...
Yeah, so we should be fine.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
So, a couple of announcements. We're going to begin something every week called the Sexual Euphemism Challenge, where I challenge Cole and Cole challenges me to use the sexual euphemism of our choice in the show. So this week, Cole has challenged me to somewhere use the Phyllis Diller Special, and I've challenged him to use the Chinese wheelbarrow. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, we'll try to let you know in advance, so you can look for them. But this week, we're piloting this one.
We're gonna tweet what the sexual euphemism challenge is to each of us a couple of days before the show.
Yeah. So
you can listen with eager anticipation to see
who gets there first.
What happens every week. And if we succeed, you will hear this sound. And you will also hear an appropriate, disappointing, probably trombone-y kind of sound if we fail.
So, I guess at the end of the show, though, right? If we just forget,
because obviously otherwise, it would be just continual trombones through the whole show until we do it.
We might have to refine it though, like if one of us uses it, but it's really bad.
Yeah.
Might have to edit that one in. We'll see.
We'll have to wing it. Moving on, we're shortening our show length to 1 hour and 20 minutes, and we're gonna see how that works out. And along with that, we're increasing the amount of structure that we put into the show. So we're going to have less rambling, who the fuck knows what. And we're going to try to have a little bit more of a skeleton in the show with specific things that we sort of cover, some of which will be recurring and some will be kind of throwaway bits.
Yeah, I would say we're hoping that for those of you that like our meandering through the alleys and streets of the of the Mindverse, you can still enjoy that. And for those of you that are like, what the fuck are these guys doing? We're gonna have a little bit more regularity. Pretend like we're eating more fiber, but in the sense of a radio show, a podcast, as it were.
I've never heard it put that way before, but sure.
Well, regularity, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I guess so. You make a strong, solid point there. So.
Bad Guy Labs is taking their Metamucil.
As we are, aficionados of ass-based medicine.
It's true. The one true ass-based medicine. That we professionally endorse.
Yeah, it's not like we're just continually rubbing Old Man McGillicuddy's anal turpentine tonic onto our assholes or something. Like,
no red yeast rice enemas.
Yeah, if you're gonna use an enema, for God's sakes, don't use red yeast rice
or cayenne.
Ouch!
Papaya.
Ouch! Ouch! Each. And a quick mention of the griefs.
Oh, yeah. So, as usual, we tell you that our music is brought to you by the Griefs. If you ever want to find them and you can't find them by just searching for the Griefs, always leave us a message, email us, whatever. The front man for the Griefs is actually my brother, Eric Stein. He's involved in several different projects. I don't think he's doing stuff with the Griefs anymore. So, I'll try to find ways for you to find him. If you like his music, which I hope you do.
I do.
There we go. We got 2 votes in the room. So he's polling at 100% in the lab. Hopefully it's pretty high out there too. And as I found out from him this week, just listening to him online, that doesn't really do a whole lot for him. It's good. He appreciates it. I appreciate it by proxy. But if you are interested and you'd like to have that music on your iPod or whatever musical device you have, MP3 device, let us know. It should be on iTunes. I'll try to find it for you if you want to find it. So, just throwing that out there. Apparently, thousands of listens on Spotify gets him about $0.25.
God damn.
So,
that licks donkey balls.
It does. I had no idea. I thought it was a better deal for everybody, but I don't have any fucking clue. Since, I'm not a musician. I'm as close to the opposite of a musician as you can get. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that sucks how people get dicked over all the time and they put out all that work and, construct a lab and create a band or whatever.
I thought you were going to follow an oblique path into talking about piracy.
Hell no, pirates do great.
Fair enough.
So, some of you may be wondering what the deal is with the cartoon that we have put up as sort of our front picture.
Yeah, we never really addressed it before, so
it's representational of various things. So, I guess first and foremost, working in the background on the little shelf, I like a lot of booze. I don't know about you guys. So it's a funny little homage to home brewing. There's an ale pail back there with an airlock attached to it, and some random liquor bottle. And
oh yeah,
there's There's test tubes and flask and beaker and
all the essentials,
etc. Which that's sort of what our also this is sort of what our lab actually looks like, except in cartoon form and kind of abstract. Like it's obviously bigger than this cartoon. Like it's got more crap in it, but it's sort of a quick impression of it.
Yeah, it's not half the size of your kitchen.
And there's Cole's disembodied head in the background on a shelf.
That happens. I mean, I like pickles so much. I thought, why the fuck not pickle my head?
Yeah.
It's turned out all right so far.
Yeah, you're smiling in there. You're happy.
I'm having a good time.
And I inserted that after the fact because I drew the first cartoon actually before I ever met Cole.
That's true.
I always wanted to do something along these lines, but I don't know. I was reading a lot and trying to figure things out exactly what I wanted to do. So, and then when he came along, we started using the still I made without his head in it, and then I finally got my lazy ass in gear and put in a few hours and inserted his image into the background there.
Well, we had to figure out what we were gonna do because I liked the image, but there wasn't an obvious space to juxtapose us. So I was like, just put me in a jar on a shelf.
Yeah.
I figured that worked.
We may change it again in the future. I mean, maybe my head will be in the jar or something. I mean, I wouldn't mind taking a little break and being the one in the jar. Looks relaxing.
Yeah, that's true. It is pretty nice.
And there's a rabbit that's on the left side, which that's there because rabbits are used in labs a lot. And also, I really liked the rabbit from Holy Grail. Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I don't know.
We need the Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch in there somewhere.
I should have made that bomb the Holy Hand Grenade. That would have been perfect. Never thought of that. So what I'm doing is I'm pointing at the rabbit using a dowsing rod that actually looks for bombs, and this isn't made up. This is a real thing. It's one of the many scams out there. This particular one is called the ADE 651 bomb detector. And it's something that actual soldiers were using in Iraq. It
Some stupid shit.
Cost hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to sell these to the military. I'm not sure exactly how extensive it went, how many armies used it, but it killed a bunch of people because soldiers thought that the bomb detector was working and they'd let cars go through if the thing didn't detect a bomb, and then it turned out it was random. It was all based on random chance. So,
yeah.
What it is, it's just basically a plastic handle with a radio antenna sticking out of the front of it, and it's on a hinge, so it can swing left and right freely. And it's supposed to be unbalanced on purpose. It's long and pendulous, so that it swings a lot, and you can't control it no matter how still your arm is.
Kind of like a dick. Sort of.
My dick actually, when it points at things, it's more accurate than the ADE 651.
Fair enough. Okay. So when we say kind of, it really is kind of.
My dick is a detector of a different sort.
Still somehow aimed at rabbits.
Although it still has a military connotation because I think of it as a heat-seeking moisture missile. So I'm pointing at the rabbit, which is the safest thing in the room, while there's a bomb right behind me that the thing isn't picking up at all, which is indicative of the real thing.
No, but if it were the rabbit from Monty Python, it is the most dangerous thing in the room.
Yeah.
Think
about it.
I know I won't.
And then the other thing in the room is a perpetual motion machine, which I hate to break it to you guys, but they're bullshit.
I know.
There's so many people out there that are they're either, no, you can do perpetual motion, you just have to design it right. Or there are people out there that are yeah, I agree with you, perpetual motion machines are bullshit. But then they find this one thing that is exempted from that rule.
Magically.
And then somehow they completely change their mind, but they'll still say perpetual motion machines are bullshit, but they'll advocate for one, but not admit that that thing is a perpetual motion machine. So there are a lot of perpetual motion machines out there, and they've been around for centuries in various proposals of one sort or another. I've read words by Da Vinci where he denounces perpetual motion machines. I mean, people have been trying to come up with water mill based ones and all sorts of stuff forever.
Yeah.
And it breaks the laws of thermodynamics, of course. The one in the cartoon is an electrolyzer. So basically, the short version, I'll cover it in some future show in more detail, but the short version of it is inside that blue container is a series of steel plates connected to conductive rods, and half of them are positive and half of them are negative. They're connected to the positive and negative terminals of a battery, which it's resting on. And the electricity transfers from it conducts from the positive to the negative plates through the water that's in that container, thus severing the bonds, creating oxygen and hydrogen where there was water molecules. And this turns into a gas called Brown's gas, which goes into the hose at the top, over into the fuel tank of a generator that's sitting there, which runs the generator, which creates electricity, which goes into a power inverter sitting on the bench, which runs back into the battery, which powers the electrolyzer, which creates more Brown's gas, which goes back over to the generator, and so on ad nauseum. And
not to be confused with a fuel cell.
Completely different thing, the fuel cell. That works. And the thing about this electrolyzer is it works. It creates Brown's gas, which is around as explosive as gasoline and as dangerous in the same quantities. But you won't get more out of it than you put into it. That's the thing. And there are people around that don't understand that and don't know it, and they think there's some way of getting free energy somehow, something from nothing.
Yeah, well, they seem to think in that situation that it can transfer electrons and magically get them back somehow.
Yeah, so there's I did a whole breakdown on the energy consumed versus put out, different ways of doing it. And like I said, in the future I'll haul that out. It's buried somewhere in one of my hard drives somewhere, and it's interesting. And the weird thing is they actually use these in England, for example. But the reason why they can get away with it is because gas over there is so much more expensive than it is in the States. So they actually will create Brown's gas off of their household current, and it's cheaper to drive their car by using Brown's gas than it is to use gasoline.
Oh, okay.
Now, if the electricity price went up proportionally with the price of gasoline, then electrolyzers would never be feasible.
Right.
Just depends on the market. So all this stuff in the cartoon is kind of it's a gag, and it's sort of based around what we're interested in, which is things that people think are real but are actually bullshit.
Oh yeah, totally. Did you have to grow up to find out about the magic of dowsing rods, or were you shown that from a young age?
No, I thought dowsing rods were real. Like, I used to, as a little kid, I saw a show about them, and like many shows back in the 70s and 80s, it was putting it out there as I don't know, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. Everything was like that. Fucking stupid presentation. Sometimes a thing is just bullshit. And a show saying, well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Nobody knows, nobody can know. That's a dumb show.
Yeah.
A ton of shows like that out there.
Oh yeah, I was actively encouraged. I'd be playing with a stick, and some adult would be like, "That would make a good dowsing rod."
Yeah.
And of course, I was 7, so I was like, "What does that mean?" And I was told about it as if it were a thing. They're like, "Oh, you could go find stuff with it." Yeah. And it's like, what?
Yeah, I couldn't understand the mechanism under it, even as a little kid. But I went around with different things, and my mom would be like, "I don't know, maybe willow wood's not good enough. I've heard that apple wood is better." And I saw this show on PBS. I used to watch Doctor Who, and after Doctor Who, since it was shorter than a regular show, it was only 21 minutes. Yeah. They'd have a 9-minute show called Windows, which was a window into some little aspect of the community or something. and they'd have just like a quick piece on some person doing something they do.
Okay.
Like, one was like priests that raised ostriches, and they have weird blessing. That's a whole different fucking thing.
Yeah, no shit.
One of their chants was, "And bless this ostrich," and they do the whole religious-y thing. That was an episode of Windows.
All right.
There was one about a guy that made like welcome mats out of old tires, which was actually kind of interesting. He cut them up into pieces and like reconnected them together in strips. That was cool because there was no fucking magic in it.
Well, yeah, that's just unusual. That's not like fucking wacky and retarded.
Yeah. And so then there was one about dowsers, and they did a 9-minute piece on people that used dowsing rods and found shit, or so they claimed. And I thought it was neat, and I was really interested in like all the supernatural and paranormal shows of the time, like In Search of and Unsolved Mysteries and Sightings, and like Arthur C. Clarke's World of Strange something or other. I can't remember the name of it now. Phenomena.
I don't remember either.
Which, shame on you, Arthur C. Clarke, because usually he was a very rational guy. I mean, he went through a phase, I think. He later came out of it. And there were others. But yeah, I thought it was real. I walked around with dowsing rods through my yard. I walked over a very wet, swampy area purposefully, and like nothing happened. And I started to get sort of disillusioned by it and gave up. But it took years later to understand like the sort of the mechanisms underlying why this thing even exists in the first place.
Right.
And it was basically it's called the ideomotor effect, where the people where the dowsing rod moves downward, seemingly out of their control. They're doing it.
Oh, yeah.
It's no different than a Ouija board. Oh, by the way, guys, Ouija boards are bullshit.
Yeah, in case you didn't know.
It's amazing, like, the way psychology works and the gross ignorance that the population has about psychology can motivate them and prompt them into things that are complete bullshit.
Well, especially, like, when I think about a Ouija board, that sounds like something where the more people involved, obviously up to a point, the more effective the illusion.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it's just like one person. Well, if I sat down at a Ouija board, like I'd be like, this is lame. Nothing's happening. 2 people, maybe something. But you could see where if you got like 4 or 5 people, there's enough people fooling themselves, making errors, etc. Where you could think, I could imagine if you get that sweet spot in a board game sort of sense, like, oh god, it's moving.
It gives me an idea.
Okay.
We should invent Ouija dowsing.
5 people holding on to a stick.
It's like 5 wide, but they're all connected. It's sort of like a really...
So 5 handles?
5 handles, and they're all connected together by like a bar with 5...
okay.
Or the bar has one big pointy thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
That could be a funny little gag we might have to do sometime, like an experiment to try on people.
Ouija dowsing.
To fuck with them. I'll bet you could find a lot of people that would find it plausible.
Well, I wonder how many people are just, mystified enough by the name. It's just yes. Oui for French and ja for German. But somehow that becomes Ouija in America. I don't know. But yeah, it's like I guess it was maybe constructed to sort of look like a magical, mystical name, but it's just bullshit.
I have the perfect spokesman, Jeff Goldblum. Because whenever I hear his name or anybody mentions him or anything, all I think of in my head is his voice going, yes. Take him down. Do your stuff. Take him out. Those weird lines that he has. Nature always finds a way, or whatever it is.
Right.
That weird way of talking he has, and he said
Must
yes.
go faster.
He says yes a lot. Yeah. he said yes somewhere, and that's all that I have in my head regarding him. He could totally pimp out the Ouija board or the Ouija dowsing or whatever. Yes.
It'd be the best thing too if it was not like a professionally polished commercial. If it was just sort of an awkward stop-start sort of commercial, like it's the Ouija board. It's yeah. It works. Yes.
So I
brought to you by Mattel. Bing.
So I was out dowsing in the yard different times, and eventually just gave up. And it took me until I was in my late 20s before I I think the first time I actually heard it was on Penn and Teller Bullshit. Somebody mentioned the ideomotor effect. So I looked it up. And the interesting thing, if you're the right type of person with the right type of interest, is when you get that first little spark, and this wasn't the first spark, but it was an interesting, little trip of sort of stream of consciousness learning and searching on the internet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was around the time when I started to become more interested in bullshitty things and how you know when things are bullshit and when they're real.
So you mean got interested in like debunking that kind of stuff, not interested in stuff that actually was bullshit?
Right. Like when I became interested in debunking things that were full of bunk, yes. And I believed lots of stupid crap because of shows like In Search of and things. And it took me a long time, like into my mid to late 20s, before I really figured out that there was a way of discerning between real and fake, and it wasn't all equally likely or mysterious or knowable or unknowable or equally plausible, etc. Which is sort of how my early part of my life went. It was all equal. And it turns out that the way you find these things out is through science.
I'll be goddamn.
Holy shit. And I majored in science in high school, and I took physics.
You majored in high school?
Math and science, yeah.
You can major in high school?
Mine did. Yeah.
Weird.
I went to a high school in New York State where they had... they changed it since then, but back then they had something called a local diploma and a regents diploma.
Uh-oh.
And there's a board of regents that governs like regents classes.
Okay.
And they're like the higher end classes. Like if you get a regents diploma, back when it meant something, it was like a cut above a local diploma.
Okay.
But the only two states that have boards of regents are California and New York, so most people don't know what it is.
Okay.
And New York has fucked around with it since I graduated, but...
I did not go to high school in New York State, so that's... Anytime I've heard people talk about majoring in high school, I always go, what the fuck?
Yeah, most people don't know this, but Cole actually went to high school in the neutral zone near, I think it's near Qatar.
There was a no-fly zone as well.
Little known fact.
Oh, yeah. What is it, the 51st parallel?
That little diamond-shaped square where anything goes.
It was beautiful, man.
So I majored in math and science in high school. I took, I had heavy emphasis. Basically what it means is you can take whatever classes you want as long as you have a heavy emphasis on math and science.
Okay.
So... I went through all the sciences, and I had a heavy emphasis in math. And then I took physics and chemistry classes when I went to college. And still, even after that, it was all still equally plausible, likely, knowable, mysterious, etc. Because the trouble with these classes is they didn't teach people like me, like, what science really meant. They just covered, like, lab experiments and... sort of facts about science.
That's been my experience with not only like science curriculum but also people teaching science is they don't. Well, first of all, let's go ahead and assume, which this would be an unwarranted, slightly stupid assumption, that they are versed in the proper functioning and the ideas that drive science. But science courses are much more geared towards teaching people the content of science and not the logic of science, the philosophical and I don't know.
There's a philosophy of science, which I later found out about, and I really like it. If anybody's interested, just look up the name Karl Popper and read up on philosophy of science. Now, it's not perfect, but very little is. But if you want to know where I'm coming from, the philosophy of science covers a lot of it.
Yeah, you could just even Wikipedia it. Like, you can see sort of the progression.
Yeah.
Because Popper is probably just sort of a more modern incarnation of it, even.
Yeah. What it comes down to is you need to be able to test things, and if you can't, then it's bullshit, most likely.
Right.
You follow something called the null hypothesis.
Well, and like the key contribution of Popper was falsification, is that you can't present a hypothesis that can't be falsified, and that should be your goal, is to try to prove your alternative hypothesis wrong.
Right.
And if you can't, then you've got something.
Yeah. Yeah. And that basic stuff was well beyond me. Which, after the fact, seems like nothing, but unless I was absent the day they covered that.
No, they didn't. They didn't cover it in my school either. So that shit didn't get its way into my brain until college.
So when I discovered shows like Penn and Teller Bullshit and various other avenues similar to it, yeah, it turns out that this is another thing. It's about burden of proof. A lot of people, and I didn't even understand this really, like as a kid and a teenager and a tween. Burden of proof is important, and there are rules about it. There are rules about all this stuff. There are rules of science. There are rules of evidence, and there are rules of rhetoric. And if you don't understand them, you're probably going to end up being a big, fat fuck up. And you're not going to understand that. You're going to think you're doing great. So the burden of proof is on the person making the positive claim or assertion, not the other way around.
Right.
And a lot of people don't get that. Like, we're atheists, as we've said, and the burden of proof is on people to prove there's a God. It's not on us to prove there isn't one. And the reason for that is because it's a logical impossibility to prove a negative. And you can apply that anywhere. Dowsing, anything supernatural or paranormal or outrageous in that way.
Well, and also, people don't seem to realize that being an atheist, or at least claiming no knowledge, is the null hypothesis in this situation. Mm-hmm. The alternative hypothesis that people are presenting is there is a God, he created the universe. Okay, that's a fine hypothesis. Prove it. Now, if you're going to try to like squirm and squirrel out of it by saying, oh, well, it's not, I'm not making a claim about reality. First of all, that's obviously a little horseshit for one thing. But secondarily, it's useless. I don't know. I didn't go in a straight line on that one, but it's just fucking retarded and useless.
Mm-hmm. Well,
but I guess my basic point was people don't realize that we're not the ones offering the alternative hypothesis, and they're only retaining or accepting something that's socially acceptable, not something that is scientifically like the null hypothesis. Mm-hmm. That was a little labyrinthine. I apologize. Anyway.
So they're all related, too. That's the other thing that I found fascinating when I started reading up on these things. All these concepts are related together. And early on, before I met Cole, and I drew this cartoon, and I wanted to do a show of some kind, but I didn't know what. I learned a lot about this subject, and I became really good. I developed my bullshit detector very well, and I think it's a direct response to my earlier life where I felt like I was lied to a lot, or at least deceived without people being malicious about it.
Yeah.
Out of their own ignorance. Things like the null hypothesis and the burden of proof and many other things very similar are all related. They're all interrelated. Breaking it down really fast, I guess. First of all, there's how to make a logical argument, which I've covered. Excuse me. Too much carbonation. I've covered before. You start out with a premise, and then you apply logic to it, and then you arrive at a conclusion. And there are many ways of fucking up along that short track.
Yes, that's generally where it happens, I would say.
And related to that is, the null hypothesis and the burden of proof are sort of more in the beginning area of that.
Yeah.
And then there are these things called logical fallacies, many of which exist, and you can commit any number of them. Everyone commits them almost all the time. Sort of how I operate when I'm not trying to tell a joke is I just see them in people everywhere all the time. Like it's sort of like a filter that just goes into my head, and I can't not hear them. But I just try to ignore them most of the time because I don't want to be a literal douche about it.
Like mediums, they're just always hearing the other side.
Yeah, I'm like a bullshit medium. And along with logical fallacies, there are biases. So they're interrelated as well. So you can commit logical fallacies because you have a bias, or vice versa. You can have a bias as a result of a logical fallacy that you committed at some point. It's all a big... I've tried to draw like a chart of these things before, and it turns into a twisted mess. And I'm sure there's like ways to do it. I've looked up online trying to find charts like these. Mm-hmm. And no really good ones exist. There are incomplete ones. but nothing that truly shows the interrelatedness of all these concepts. And then to make matters worse, you start delving into how the brain is wired and how psychology works.
Yep.
And the lines being drawn on this chart just go all over the fucking place.
Yeah, you start dumping in a little bit of some heuristics.
Yes, heuristics.
Things like that.
The long list of heuristics you can look up, which are also fascinating. Basically, rules of thumb that we follow.
Mm-hmm.
And if you so example, there's something I was reading about. Regarding people who think bicyclists are assholes in Slate. They just put up an article about it. And they mention the affect heuristic. And basically it's when you, instead of using logical reasoning, you arrive at a conclusion because of your emotions. And you think and judge and make decisions based on your emotions. And it has a lot to do with scary sounding phrases versus pleasant sounding ones. And what your impressions were anyway, your preconceived notions in your head. Just discussing the affect heuristic alone and trying to explain it. If I was to just draw a chart of that,
right,
it would be convoluted and all over the place.
And to go one step deeper, I can't think of a better way to put that. I bet you talking to a lot of people about the affect heuristic will activate their affect heuristic.
Yeah.
I don't just react emotionally to things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do that. And it's like, well, what are you doing right now? Well, fuck you. All right. Well.
Mm-hmm. Oh hell no.
Heard it.
That's a little homage to The Whitest Kids You Know. If you guys don't know that, you should look it up. It's great.
Agreed. Sex robot. Look that up too.
That vacuum will rip your dick off. If you don't know any of those, just search around. You'll find them.
Oh yes. Oh, oh, you will find them.
So
heuristics. That's where we were.
So there's this whole area that science is supposed to cover, and it doesn't. It is science, but nobody ever really talks about it in science classes, and they don't tell kids about it. Critical thinking is another area. I'm a giant fan of Carl Sagan, and a main part of that is his advocacy for critical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And they say words like critical thinking in school, and I've heard it before, and there have been ends of chapters in my textbooks called critical thinking about the subject, but I didn't truly understand what it was. And it's along these lines of how to make a logical argument, how falsification works, how you can do things in an unbiased way without committing a fallacy.
Right.
And not just playing semantics and using rhetoric. One of the things, if you learn how to debate, is you learn not how to seek the truth often, but how to win the debate even though you're wrong. Right. That sucks a big bag of donkey dicks.
All you gotta do is watch news commentary shows. Doesn't matter what channel you're on. I'm not even gonna address that. But whenever you see since it's election season, and again, not to put bias in, but just watch the debates and see if the person who is winning, so to speak, is actually using critical thinking and rules of evidence, or if it's just it's the guy that feels more right.
Yeah. Well, voting is all fucked up, and politics is all fucked up. I vote, but I can barely drag myself out to do it. And I got called for jury duty once, and I expressed these opinions that I have about, how the world works. And I was told that I wasn't needed.
That doesn't really surprise me, though.
Yeah.
That's sort of how the legal system works. Well, if you're tried by a jury, that's how it works. That's what I'll say.
I wanted to be there, too. I wasn't one of those guys trying to get out of it. I wanted to do it. I wanted to have the experience. And I noticed that other people there like me were also, I guess it's called striking a witness.
I think so, yeah.
So I was struck, and they kept people that were just sort of like I used to be. Sort of everything's equally likely and plausible and mysterious and knowable.